Just gonna hop in.
Welcome, guys, to episode 1 of the Bean Boyz Podcast
The Bean Boyz Podcast.
with
This
your
is
hosts,
a continuation.
Sam and Simi.
This is a continuation to the Bean Boyz, then.
This is, yes.
This
We
is,
won't
yes.
discuss our previous videos, but if you would like to go and
We
watch
won't
them,
discuss them.
they are
do watch
available on the channel, and they are great, so do watch them if you can. All right, then.
Let's
So-
go.
Today's topic.
Topics.
Yes, topics, I guess. But the general consensus for today's discussion is discipline. Let's go for it. All right, first question.
Yes, let's go for it. Question.
What makes a good sleep schedule? Okay, because sleep schedule is very important, especially in terms of workflow and getting work done. You need to be rested. Otherwise, you can feel restless throughout the day and you can't really get work done. What are a couple of things that we can do as human beings, especially young people, to make our sleep schedule better, so that we're more effective during work?
Well, I'm just gonna assume right now that it's gonna have to be consistency. That has
Absolutely.
to be it.
Absolutely. Definitely. And that means doing the same thing every day, and trying not to break pattern and developing actually patterns and schedules that you can maintain over time, and not setting yourself unrealistic expectations that are hard to achieve, especially when creating a good sleep schedule. People tend to shift from bad to good too fast, and that's very hard to maintain. So it's slowly building that over time with micro adjustments.
So
and that creates good
prioritizing
habits.
discipline over the proper times there.
Exactly.
So starting by, discipline. I mean consistency. You prioritize consistency. You start by focusing on actually having something consistent and doing something that feels more comfortable or used to what you've previously done to make that step as easy as possible. And then once you've got that consistency, you can start slowly worrying about moving this sleep schedule. It should be quite possible to move it over time after you've achieved the consistency.
Certainly, yeah. And ways in which you can achieve that is waking up early for a start. Really does help with, getting tired at a certain time, especially if you want to have an early sleep. If you've got an early start in the morning, if you're working, let's say, and you've got to be up at 6 o'clock, waking up early, even at the weekends, can really help build that routine, and not breaking that, especially if there is no need to get up in the morning. Let's say if you're away or something like that, maintaining that early start. And also building a tolerance to that as well. It's a good idea. But yes, sleep schedule is very important. Energy is important, especially if you want to get work done. So it's very important.
Yeah. I'd say one thing for me as well is that often what I struggle with is the standing up part, getting that consistent, because the mistake I make is often associate what I have to do in the day with standing up, and that then prevents me from consistently standing up at the right time, where what I'm supposed to do is I should very much separate the standing up from what I'm then going to do to make the standing up easier. So making that the easiest step as possible by... Are you running out of air here?
Nah, bro, I'm about to sneeze.
Oh, okay.
It's
I thought
okay.
you're to make that step as easy as possible by it just being about standing up. And then after you've done that, then you can start worrying about the rest of your day. Because if you connect this, you'll just make one step. You're combining two steps into one, making that one step much more difficult than it need be. So that's one thing
Certainly,
I struggle
yes.
with.
No, 100%. And yeah, that's a really, really good point. All right, should we move on to the next topic?
Not a bad idea.
Alrighty. So
This is one of mine.
Yeah, go on. You read it out.
This is something that has helped me stay disciplined, and it's the idea that when you're struggling to do something, to make that easier, this is again about steps. Steps are very important. To make that step of doing this thing easier on yourself, you're going to get rid of distractions, which is obviously going to help. So the distractions you can get rid of here is anything connected to what you're actually doing. Since the main issue here is mostly going to be that you're not being disciplined. It's going to occur a lot of the time. So what you want to do is you want to not think about why you should do this thing, or why perhaps, mostly in this case, why you shouldn't do it, and not distract yourself with all these excuses, and simply just think, should I do this for the discipline? I'm going to say, you either do it or you don't. It's just about discipline. You're either disciplined or you're not disciplined. That's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah,
and you just get rid of the distractions. There is no
Indeed.
excuses created by this topic. Whenever you're struggling to do something, really just think about being disciplined or not being disciplined. And then simplifying it like that is going to make it way easier to stay disciplined. Because within a topic that gets very complicated, it's easy to come up with excuses for yourself in the moment. And that's a good way to prevent that with that habit of thinking about just being disciplined or not being disciplined.
Yeah, so just not getting into that mindset of overthinking, and just thinking it very simply. And that can be little things like, let's use a real life example. Let's say just getting up early or getting out of bed in the morning. Telling yourself that you feel tired and things like that do stop you from doing things, or even just going out. I need to have a shower. I need to do all these things that won't get you there on time. Say if you're going somewhere that you need to be on time. Just doing that thing. Just for the sake of it, because you need to, and that does teach you good discipline, and sticking to your word as well is really important. So not lying to yourself. Don't tell yourself to do something and then not go and do it. Is a really good way of sticking to that discipline. Yeah, definitely. Any other things on that topic that you'd like to talk about?
Only that you say for the sake of doing it. It's for the sake of the discipline, like focusing on just being disciplined, not disciplined, or not being disciplined, to simplify things as much as possible.
Exactly.
That's it.
Cool. All right then. Let's move on. Rest. Okay.
We've kind of covered this one, have we not?
We have.
No, we have. Sorry, no. Rest is very separate. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I mean, rest also relates to sleep. Obviously, sleep is really important. But rest, as in taking a step back from work, and just giving your brain a chance to reset, and giving you a chance to reflect, is really, really important. Especially if you've got quite a busy week, or you're overworking yourself. Just even giving that a little bit of time, even each day, or an allotted day per week, is what I prefer personally, to have rest, and that can really help with motivation for one, and also just mood in general. Certainly.
Well, one thing I'd like to add is that the kind of rest we're talking about here isn't sleeping rest. We're talking about waking rest specifically.
Yes.
This is something that I'd say becomes an issue once you're quite disciplined. Since for this to become an issue, you have to be able to, be disciplined enough to spend your entire day doing important things. Once you've reached this point, this can become an issue. Well, probably it will be. But before that, it probably is not going to be that much of an issue. But it's mainly about that waking rest, where I also like one day in the week of full rest, but I also think that, based on something we've talked about in the past as well, is you can't just have an entire day without any waking rest. And I often make that mistake of just spending the entire day doing things, when I should have taken at least a few hours for resting. And then what ends up happening is the next morning I stand up and it's quite clear I need rest now. And
Certainly.
then I have to rest in the morning time, which I really don't like, because that's when I'm the most productive. And now by thinking in the moment, really just not helped myself. And if I had just taken a rest the previous day in the evening, would have been way better, because I'd spent evening time instead of morning time getting that rest, which is way preferred for me.
Yeah, certainly. And obviously not resting can lead to things like burnout, fatigue, especially mental fatigue, which I guess burnout is at the end of the day. And it's acknowledging the fact that you do need that, and everyone needs it. And knowing when to take that time is really important, and allocating that time, because burnout is something that you don't quite see until it happens, and you just got to acknowledge that, and take that time just to rest, so that doesn't happen. And it will happen eventually, especially if you feel yourself overworked and you have a deadline that you need to meet. You do need to just knuckle down and grind it out, but just taking that rest maybe after you finish that task is really important. And you find yourself more efficient after you've taken rest. You might say, get a couple of days worth of work done in a day after you took a good day's rest, which I found at the weekend really helped me. Especially getting that work done that I missed out on, especially on the Friday, where I found myself quite busy and I had a lot of stuff come up. That found my whole day completely rammed full of stuff. And just taking that Saturday off really helps. But yes, alrighty. All happy with that?
Yeah, I'm happy
Cool.
with that.
Alright then. So
The
next
next
one.
one is, it's another one of mine. It's another one of those principles. Another thing to help stay disciplined, to help keep at the tasks or the things you're trying to do, struggling to do. It's about steps. It's about making that step as easy as you can. And this one is by not making the step of doing something about doing it, instead making about allocating time to potentially doing it. Since this is obviously going to be a lot easier to accomplish than taking a step that's connected with doing it. And then you're going to allocate this time. What's important there is you don't want to distract yourself. And that's about it. Now you just spend, say, an hour. And this hour is just for one thing. And you don't have to do this thing about it. You're going to give this hour just to, without distraction, think about it, focus on it, and potentially do it. And usually, when I do this, I will end up doing the thing, and if I don't, I will get closer to being able to do it mentally, and I'll probably do it the next time I give myself this time. And this is another thing really that helps to
Certainly.
take that step, just by making it a bit easier than it would be otherwise.
Yeah, and I also think this leads on a little bit towards taking control of situations. And not letting the mind wander. So really focusing on a task that you've got, even if it's for a set amount of time, and just trying to get that done. And even if you don't get it done, like you said, you've at least thought about that task. And really
which brings you
concentrate on
closer
it.
to actually doing it.
Exactly, definitely. Cool. Anything else you'd like to add about that one?
Yeah, that there's something quite connected to what you've just ended out your sentence with, and that's understanding that this is quite a difficult one. Understanding that failing is part of the process. It's also dangerous because if you start seeing too much positivity in failing, that can obviously be quite disastrous.
Sure.
But at a rational amount, it's quite important to understand that there's going to be a lot of processes where attempting it and then failing is a natural part of the process. And if you don't understand this and you think there's something wrong when you try something and fail, that can really hold you back. So that's an important thing, I'd say.
Cool. Alrighty. So next topic is steps. What I mean by steps is taking small steps towards a greater goal. So it almost relates to goals as well, and that is not overloading yourself with many tasks to do at once, because that can be quite daunting, quite scary, and just taking small steps towards that goal by breaking it down. Okay. So, ways in which we can do that. Let's say we have a goal. It's quite a big goal. Let's use the gym, for example, because I'm a gym body. Let's say we want to get to a certain weight on the bench press, for example. We need to look at the procedures and stuff that we need to break down and use to get to that goal, instead of just focusing hyper-focusing on one thing and trying to build that specifically. So even just looking at your program, looking at some accessory lifts that you can use in the gym to boost your bench press. Or it could be just redoing your program. Thinking about rest as well is really important. A lot of people, especially when they're quite goal-driven, they might just zoom straight through the steps. It's just taking it nice and slow, really making sure each one's done perfectly so that you have a really good foundation and your goal's secure. And it's not something that's really scary and weak, especially. All right. Would you like to add
Steps. Yeah, definitely. We've talked about steps multiple times already. I think steps are very, very important principle. I'd say that always, whenever you're struggling with something, the first thing I think about is, how can I make this step easier? Since it's a step you're not taking, that's what you should be looking for, is making it easier. Because I, funnily enough, like to use the analogy of exercise for this, where if you aren't making it easier, to me it's a bit like someone trying to lift a weight way above what they can do, and just sitting there like pulling at the weight, it's just not moving. Like eventually they're going to lift it, but this is never going to be efficient. Where if they just take a step back and make that step easier and take a smaller weight that they can actually lift, you're going to be like, lifting this weight, getting some reps in, and then taking bigger and bigger weight until you can lift that big weight. And it's always going to be faster than just throwing yourself at that wall of that giant weight and keeping on trying instead of just taking easier steps. That's really how I like to think of that.
And it's very demotivating, especially, like you said, throwing yourself at a wall repeatedly and nothing sticking. It can be very demotivating. So just...
That, certainly.
Just almost building a ladder to climb over the wall is a good way of putting it. Each step of the ladder gets you closer to, getting over the wall. With this big challenge that you're going for. Just small steps, Cool. Happy with that?
Yeah, I'm content.
Cool. All right, next one. Go for it.
This one is about doing things that you find difficult to do simply because of that. Seeking the challenge and seeking your fears, because you understand that doing so will, basically the only way is that to solve those fears is to just challenge them, and then seeing the positive in that and really just seeking them. That's how I sum that up.
Yeah, so it's acknowledging your struggles and stuff that you find scary and working towards fixing those and overcoming those fears and challenges, I guess, as well, because challenges are scary at the end of the day. So, things that you can do to kind of learn about what you struggle with is reflecting on how you present yourself is a really good way of looking at it, especially in public, around other people. If you find yourself quite introverted, think about how you speak to people and how people view you is really important, and how that can improve, and almost getting an image in your head of this person that you want to be and what that person looks like and the challenge that they had to face to go from where you are now to get to that person that you've imagined that you want to be, that you want to become. We've both certainly gone through our own struggles to get to where we are now, especially socially. I think it's a big one. Definitely working and being in front of people really helps with confidence, be able to speak, creating ideas and sharing that with people is quite a scary thing sometimes. So just getting involved with meetings is a really important skill to have, and it does help you progress, especially if you're younger or you're quite an anxious person. It does really, really help. Cool.
It does.
Anything that you've done that you think has really helped you to get over some struggles, get over some challenges? Let's go for it.
Yeah, I had something that I had worked on, then I wasn't certain if to publish it. And I ended up convincing myself to do so. One of the arguments actually just simply was that I was feeling a bit irrationally. I was irrationally fearing to publish it. And that was one of the arguments that I used to just publish it, since I'm doing it simply for the sake that I'm struggling to do it, to then overcome that fear.
Definitely.
And I'm just using that as a factor when making decisions, and you got to see the positive in doing those things. You really got to, because there is a lot of positivity in doing things that you fear to do.
Certainly.
And just using that as a factor when making decisions is just a good mentality.
Yeah, it's almost empowering, especially if you do fear to do something, then you go and do it. It does really empower. It gives you confidence for a start. And it also takes something off your chest, takes something off your back, takes some load off, which can feel really nice. And it also helps you sleep as well at night. And you're not thinking about all these things that you haven't done today that need to get done. So going back to sleep as well. It does really help with sleep, especially if there's something that comes up daily that you do feel like you struggle with, just facing that fear. Even if it's difficult, and it is very difficult, don't get me wrong, just really pushing yourself to do that. And it is very doable as well, overcoming fear. I think phobia is something a little bit different, but most things that are nerve-wracking can be overcome with a bit of discipline and a bit of self-motivation is a good way of putting it as well.
Yeah.
Which is
I think
very similar to discipline.
Sorry.
That's okay.
I think it's just, this really is everywhere. It's again, steps. Really just trying to take the biggest step you can. And if you can't take a step, you're going to make it smaller. That really is what it's all about.
Certainly.
Yeah. Also, not comparing yourself to others is quite important, because that can be very unreasonably and without any point, can just be demotivating.
Certainly.
Since the reason there is most of the time when you're comparing, well, not most, basically every time when you compare yourself to others, you're just comparing yourself to your, what's the word? To your, the way you view them. I don't know the word for it. You're comparing yourself to that, not to them, because you don't know them that well. So just to your perception, that's it. You're comparing yourself to your perception of someone else, not that actual person. And because the way people present themselves is obviously going to be positive. They always want to present themselves positive. It's quite normal. Perception of other people is going to be much more positive than they actually are. So you're really putting yourself at a disadvantage there if you're comparing yourself to others, which,
certainly.
Yeah, that's just going to lead to a completely unreasonable demotivation if you do that. So really don't do that.
Yeah, and also in terms of setting goals as well, you can set really unrealistic goals, which are almost impossible to achieve. Because there is people out there that have natural talent at things, especially in terms of sport, education less so. I feel like a lot of people can achieve a lot greater than they think education-wise if you do stick to something for a certain amount of time. And it could take longer, especially to do things that you struggle with, to overcome them. And it's just sticking with it and not comparing yourself to other people, like you said, because for some people it could be easy. It could be as scary, and you don't know, you're not in their head at the end of the day. So just taking time, overcoming challenge, acknowledging that it's challenge, and you'll reap the rewards of overcoming that challenge, as it is very enlightening and very refreshing. Anyway, moving on. Writing. So
I've got something for the previous subject still.
you do? Okay, let's go for it.
Yeah. There's a fine line there, because on one end, I really, really believe this, that comparing yourself to others is not a good thing. But on the other side, I'm all for competitiveness. Competitiveness is great. Being competitive. How the fine line between these two is shaped, I'm not quite certain myself, but it's quite interesting that I've got those two things, those two opinions, but I do think it makes sense. Just competitiveness really motivates you. It definitely increases productivity. I just very intuitively as well think it's very healthy and good for you. But then there's that interesting fine line where like competitiveness without comparing yourself to others is quite difficult to do, to mix those two things.
I think where it starts to get iffy is when it's a long-term thing and there comes emotions with it, right? So if you say you're competitive during a sporting event or in a class, a small class that you go to once a week, let's say, and you want to be the top of the class, let's say, or the best in the team, and you really want to do really well, that's not a bad thing. But especially if those feelings persist over time and you don't feel like you're achieving that and you're being hard on yourself for not achieving almost this mirror image of this person that you want to be, because it is a little bit out of reach and it does take time to get there. That can definitely be demotivating, and just knowing when to surrender as well, which comes on to another topic that we got later on that we're going to discuss.
That's honestly exactly what I wouldn't do. So when you're in competitive field, I wouldn't compare myself to others like that.
No, certainly not.
And I would not set my goal based on others. This is just, you're being very unreasonable. A lot of the time, these better people are going to just have much more time spent in it.
Exactly.
And you really don't. You can easily set your goals just regarding yourself. There's no issue with that. The rest of the competitive field can just be like one alive body that you're going against. It does not need to be an individual person that you need to beat for some reason. You don't need to think about it like that at all. It can really just be it can still be you versus you within a competitive field. You can have both of these things.
Certainly.
Well, now the next topic, right?
Yes, go for it.
Writing is... That's another thing I wanted to tie to what we were saying earlier, to reflecting, you said.
Yeah.
Writing is a great way of reflecting. Writing, I think, has a lot of positive things, in my opinion. I first began doing it mainly for the sake of reflection. One personal aspect that I really like about it too is documentation. I really like documenting. I just have an urge to document things. Writing just really helps clear things up. There's a lot of things like going in both ways. Like in writing, you need to be quite clear about the things you're writing about, unless you're just writing that you aren't clear about them. But this also goes in the other direction, where writing about things makes things more clear. So that dynamic is quite a common one. So really just for reflecting, clearing up your thoughts, and documenting, well, as a physical ability as well, if you're doing it with a pen like I am.
Certainly.
A lot of positive things there in writing.
Yeah, and there's other mediums as well, not just writing, that you can use to reflect. But writing's especially useful. I don't know what the psychology is behind it, but it almost is, you're taking a load off yourself. And there is never really a bad time to write stuff down. Just having a notepad with you all the time and just jotting ideas down, feelings especially, just so you can understand that at another time, especially if you're going through something or your mind's going, and just having that ability to just jot it down at the time is really useful, so you can look back on that later on during your reflection time. The best time for me, I find, to write is at the end of the day. Really helps me sleep. Just getting all my ideas down, getting a to-do list down for the next day really, really helps with waking up and getting things done and not feeling without purpose in the morning, especially because you wake up and all the things that you thought about the night before won't come to you straight away. It does take time, but having that all down so it's there and you can just crack on with it does help, especially with productivity as well in the morning. But yeah, writing's great.
Planning what you're doing the next day is quite important, for sure. That is a really big difference maker. Also, writing things down, saying you're going to do something, and not just thinking this, writing it down also adds a lot of weight to it.
It does.
And really helps. I almost also feel like, really, if you aren't writing, you're holding up so many thoughts, and they're flying away in the wind. You can't be holding on to all of them. But if you're writing and documenting your thoughts and organizing these, you can really just put them all to rest in your shelf and store them there and have access to them. And you don't need to worry about carrying them all around with you at all times. You can really just store them. It's also, I feel like, really can put your thoughts at rest, at least for myself.
Definitely, yeah. I mean, it all helps. Everything helps rest, and rest helps with everything else. So it's so important. It's all links together at the end of the day. Going back to, obviously, today's topic, discipline, and how that relates to writing, would be trying to implement a form of writing, whether that is through the medium of pen and paper, just to organise thoughts, ideas, get to-do lists down, reflect on the day, can be really useful. That's also a good skill to have as well. A lot of this, especially in the modern world, a lot of everything's digitalised. So trying to get something a bit more physical can really help with that. With some connection.
I'm writing with pen, I'm going to be binding books. Not that digital for me.
No, yeah. I mean,
I
especially
roll like that.
because I find writing in the evening really helps. Just staying away from screens in the evening can really help with sleep as well. As the light just isn't very good for your eyes, especially in the evening, it can wake you up. So, pen and paper is great, especially in the evening.
Yeah.
Definitely. Okay. So, next topic.
Oh.
Or would you like to discuss something further?
I had one in between, but I've forgotten it.
One in between.
I guess I could have I could have written it down.
Could have written it down, yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I could have written it down, man.
I got our pen and paper out right now. I mean, it's already out, but you know. Anyway, so
yeah, that's the fine line as well, though. You gotta be careful. You can't just like with writing. You don't want to take away your mental training either.
No, definitely not.
You don't want to overdo it. You
No.
want to make sure you keep on thinking yourself as well.
Certainly. Do you know what? As well, it
You don't
does
want
really
to
help with
completely eliminate.
load, especially mental load. If you're running a business,
That's what I said earlier.
yeah, if you're running a business, especially, you do forget things, even if you've got amazing memory. I did find when I was at school, I had very good memory, and it wasn't really a problem. But as I got older, especially with more responsibility and stuff as well, and being an adult, it is difficult to remember everything you need to do in a day, and also get the things that you need to get done as a human being, such as eat, sleep, and train, other things like that, you know. Drink water, which I'm sure a lot of people forget nowadays.
I do.
We should have a water break right now, actually. Let's have a water break.
Let's have a water break.
Water break.
Water break engaged. You still gotta get a glass bottle.
I do. Okie dokie. Alright, so, once our water break's done, we will be discussing doing things in a way in which you learn general things.
I'm sorry, I thought that was noted down.
Alright,
It was very
you must
unclear.
elaborate.
I gotta remember first here, okay?
Okay, let's break this down. So, do things in a way where you learn general things. I think what you're saying is do things that are functional, that help day-to-day things.
I think what I'm trying to say here, or was trying to say, is that the general is not that important. It's mainly you doing things in a way where you're learning things. Stupid example is that, I don't know, if you're drawing and you're using a ruler, yeah, you're gonna get better results, but what the hell are you learning with the ruler? You learn to use a ruler, that's not much of a skill there.
Certainly not.
So just thinking about like that trade-off where in a lot of cases you can make things slightly more difficult for yourself, but you can learn more if you do that. There's a lot of that times there's decisions like that. And yeah, well, if you always take the route of just making it easy as possible and not learning very much doing it, that just doesn't seem like it's going to turn out very well long term. So yeah, that's what I was trying to say with that.
Yeah, certainly is. And there's a lot of things that you can do that teach you skills that you can apply to other things in life, right? Especially with organisation, like big projects, for example. Staying organised with things like that teaches you how to do other things in life, such as develop routines and I don't know, have a cleaner work environment, stuff like that. Just being organised is a great example of that. But yes, and how that applies to discipline. That would be. Would you like to elaborate?
How this applies to discipline. Well, it certainly would be discipline to use it. Is that the right word to use this principle? How it applies it in itself back to discipline. Well, there's one way you can see it for me is you could say that an earlier thing we've talked about is you do things for the sake of discipline. So you're going to make stuff a bit harder on yourself for the sake of developing discipline, which then in turn also going to help you to stay disciplined with those things. That's another thing. Just in general, looking out, it's just like challenge your fears. Staying disciplined for the sake of staying disciplined is a really good thing too.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. All right. Let's move on then, shall we? So
yes,
there's different types of discipline. This is one of our other topics for today. There is discipline in which you surrender, and what that means is, especially if you are quite a lone wolf, let's put it like that, okay? And there's a leader in your life, or let's say at work, who's in a higher position, knowing when to surrender and listening to what they have to say, or doing what you have to do, or what they told you to do as part of your job. And also self-discipline, which would be more intrinsic, which would be stuff that you do at home, if you run your own business, things like that. So yes, anything you'd like to add?
Well, I think there's definitely some advantage to the earlier one, but to me the latter one is certainly by far the most relevant.
Yes.
Just understanding that these two things are separate ones, and a lot of people really develop the first one a lot. And the more you do this, the harder it gets to start developing the second one.
Yep.
Because it's such a big step backward.
It certainly is. A good way of putting this is, if you work in a job all your life and you're not the boss, you're not your own boss, and having to escape that and that feeling of being stuck in a job position because of the fear of going off your own back. But obviously there's the inverse of that as well, with people that are very self-sufficient, or consider themselves self-sufficient, and not be able to take information and feedback from others. And that's where knowing when to surrender is really important as well. Especially people that are more experienced than you. Just knowing when to take that information on board and let them take control for once can be really helpful, especially for managing workload as well. Especially if there's a lot of tasks that need to be done, and you can't do that yourself. Having a team around you, especially to distribute workload, can be really, really useful. But yes. Anything else you'd like to add?
No.
Cool. All right then. So, what are some good habits that we can add into our life that may or may not, okay, we'll give it the benefit of the doubt, they might not, some of them, help with discipline? What do you think? Do you want to start with one?
So I feel like a good amount of the things we're talking about here are not that related to discipline. So maybe we did not choose the best title here, but it'll work.
It will work, yeah. Well,
first of all, we've got all the things we've listed previously and that we've talked about. They're all certainly good habits. That's why we're talking about them.
Definitely.
So rather other good habits is what we're looking for here.
Yes. So we've said about sleep schedule, really important. Also getting up in the morning as well.
Okay, where did we leave off? Good habits. You were about to list good habits.
Yeah, so morning routine. Good habits that you can do in the morning. I think standing up straight away as soon as you wake up is really, really good. Not lying in bed is a really, really good habit to have. Getting some sunlight in the morning, some exposure, can really help develop a good sleep schedule. I think it's quite a well-known fact that you need to get sunlight in the morning hours to improve your circadian rhythm. And all that means is getting tired and waking up at the right time. That's all that means. Okay. So, things that I like to do. Okay. Standing up straight away. Cold showers. Okay. Cold showers. We'll talk about this another time, but cold showers are great. Fruity.
I gotta start
great
doing
habit.
them again.
Indeed. They are great. And they can help with other things as well. But especially waking you up in the morning straight away. They're really, really good. Any other good habits that you'd like to add?
First of all, I did not know this thing about the sunlight.
You did not? Damn.
I did not know this.
Interesting. Well, the
This
more
is
you know.
valuable information. The more you know.
The more you know, eh?
The more you know. And the cold showers, done it a few times, work quite well, but
They don't work
just
for everyone.
excuse it by saying it takes too long because of all the hair. But that is a
Indeed.
terrible excuse. I gotta start doing the cold showers again because I've been struggling with the mornings. I gotta start doing them again.
And do you know what I found's really helped me, especially with cold showers? I know we're getting a bit off topic now, but even just putting the shower on and just getting in it straight away before it's heated up. That's like a mini cold shower, you know? And it's a good like
Mini cold shower.
mental barrier, yeah. Just turn the tap on straight away because it's not hot straight away. It's got to take some time to warm up and just getting straight in while it's warming up.
Well, isn't that about it needing to swap between the two channels or something like that? Because the channel's already filled with cold water and then
I think so,
something
yeah.
like that.
I think so. Or
Yeah,
if you...
the water in your house
It might be.
is not just being heated up for the shower in the moment. That's constantly being heated up. That's
No,
your
it's the hot water tank, yeah.
heating for the house and shit that's everywhere, right? That's not
Yeah.
turning on for the shower. There,
No,
it's
it's
that
already hot.
But there's like cold water and the channel. Someone takes a bit too late to come in with the hot one. Something like that. I don't know this
Yeah.
myself. I'm not a professional.
No, me neither. I don't know.
I've been around though.
Indeed. Anyway, other good habits.
Good habits. You know what? Let me think about my own day then for the good habits.
Yes.
Well, one that I'd like to do the end of the day. It's a bit counterintuitive, but doing nothing. Having a time where, for me, it's half an hour, where you simply are just. This is a form of rest as well, where you simply just sit somewhere. You're not going to get any distraction. Really avoid distractions here and just do nothing. And you. What I've found as well is I don't try to actively think about something very forcefully either. I really just try to relax and do nothing, both in doing and then in thinking. Not force. It's just fine if I start thinking, but I tend to not to. I think this helps a lot.
Trying to rest the mind
Really have
and the body.
I don't have an explanation for this, but it just intuitively does this. It's just definitely good, and I definitely feel better afterwards.
Certainly. Yeah.
I got another one as well.
Go for it.
One
No, go for it.
Don't know the perfect wording for this, but minimizing information that you're receiving, especially with today's world, all the digital stuff. Most people, including me, are just being fed way too much information, visual information too with the screens. This just can't be healthy. So really minimizing that, avoiding all that information is definitely good to improve creativity. It's one of the main things. And just less distraction too.
And reducing stimulation, especially in the evening, can really help with sleep, especially from screens and stuff. Especially short form content nowadays as well. In the evening, it can really.
You mean
stimulate the brain.
avoiding, right?
Avoiding, yeah, totally, yeah.
Yeah, I think you missed that word there.
Oh, no, avoiding.
Just like stimulation in the evening by screens can really help with sleep.
Yeah, no, avoiding stimulation. For sure. Yes, definitely. And just really knowing when to tune out and tone it down is a great habit to get into. I mean, also discipline. Trying to exercise is really important. If you can, every day. It's not a problem if you can't. Okay. Even physical labour is really good form of exercise. If you don't find yourself going to the gym or doing a specific sport, even just going for a walk is absolutely fine. And that can also really help with sleep, especially in the evening. It's a great habit to get into, just exercising every day if you can. And food as well. Trying to maintain 3 to 5 meals a day, I'd say. And some of those meals could be snacks. It doesn't have to be a full meal. Just trying to eat regularly and having set times to eat and not eating too late in the evening can really help with sleep also. Except at the end of the day, sleep is the most important thing, especially for maintaining discipline. What you find is when you're tired, you're more susceptible to temptation and falling back into bad habits.
Temptation.
Certainly. Okie dokie. Alright. Is that all we have to discuss?
Thought of the topic of bad habits, but I'm not sure if we want to jump into this one.
I mean, we can do. Why not?
Do we though?
We could save it for another time, I'm sure.
I think we save it.
Save it for another time, why not?
Alright then. Next topic then.
Well, we got setting small goals, but I think we've already brushed over that.
You said this.
Yeah, the same as the steps.
Yeah, you're right. It's just
a similar thing. So I think we've pretty much spoke about everything today.
Also, knowing when to surrender, we've also kind of covered with the following discipline, right? For people that have already developed a good self-discipline, that you can't forget about a good amount of that at leisure as well.
Definitely.
I think something that I'd really like to try to share is, I feel like a lot of the things we've now like named, or that when I hear other people talking about this sort of thing, is these are all kind of like building up on something that like there's quite the baseline we've set here, you know, which if you're just in deep shit, you ain't got this, you know. So I think that's something to talk about as well, is how do you get out the deep shit? How do you get out the deep shit? I think it's an interesting one. What? You almost sneeze, or what are you calling in English in there?
I sneezed so hard the tissue exploded.
Oh, it ripped?
Yeah, do you see that?
Oh, I can hardly... Oh, I see it now. You've ripped the tissue apart.
Yeah.
You should treat it with some MC that really tightens it up. No, I'm joking. Don't do that.
The sneeze paper. Yes.
Sneeze paper. Yeah, that I think is a really good topic, isn't it? Do you want me to start with it while you're blowing your nose out and shit?
Go for it. I'm like trying to focus not on sneezing, which I've been doing the whole time, honestly, but let's continue.
Really? Okay.
That's why my words maybe not best today.
I would say that... What are you saying?
It's hard to focus when I'm like really focusing on trying not to sneeze. So if I say stuff that doesn't really make any sense, that's probably why.
Oh, you've been making a lot of sense.
I hope so. I don't feel like I have, but we'll continue.
We probably both think that we're not making sense ourselves, aren't we?
I mean, if you are, then I guess we are both.
Because I've been feeling like I'm repeating myself because I'm not saying things clearly the first time, which I've not really felt that's very much the case with you. What have you felt like?
Well, a bit like that, I guess, but...
Well, your way around.
I'm like really focused on not like crying on the camera and sneezing. Because my eyes are just like really sore right now.
Oh, that's unfortunate. Okay.
I don't know why it always happens.
For me, a big thing was taking care of yourself. The first step to this, which I realized, is caring about yourself. It's quite family in the English wording for this is actually included. Which I only realized afterward. And that's that, well, the absolute baseline is just caring about yourself. well, there's a lot of negative forms of this that you might mistake for care. Well, for example, bad and tempting habits. With like short-term gratification.
Yes.
All those sort of things. You might think you're treating yourself very well here, and you're doing all these things that are fun for you, and the world's just evil. And in fact, you're really not treating yourself that well. Because you're only doing short-term gratification things, where in fact long-term gratification is where it's really at.
Certainly.
And that's what really you want to move towards. But then again, it's steps. Like, well, the first thing, obviously, for steps that's required here, that we've also just assumed beforehand, is a goal. You need to set a goal. You don't need to get caught up in the goal being very specific. It honestly just has to be direction. You hardly need to call it a goal.
Yeah.
Really, just a direction. If you just understand a positive direction, that's enough. And now, taking steps towards that, the biggest you can, but actually taking steps, not attempting to take steps. Unless the smallest step you can think of is just that difficult, then I suppose you are just going to have to do that.
Yeah, certainly.
I think really in the beginning of becoming more disciplined, I'll call it, stuff really is a lot overwhelming. I can't say it stops. It certainly decreases, but if you're just in that deep shit, like trying to move towards a general positive direction is very overwhelming. How to deal with that? Well, that's the thing. Just because you have done something yourself does not mean you can teach it, right?
No, certainly not.
That's what I've just realized. Yeah.
Definitely. I mean,
that's in a lot of things where people it's very difficult to explain the first steps for something because they're so difficult and complex. Those are often the hardest to teach someone, are those first steps.
Certainly, because they're very intrinsic, aren't they? So you can't really...
Yeah. So
you feel them
I'm not really finding advice here.
Yeah, I think let's go back to the bad habits as well, because we talked about good habits, which is what you just talked about just then.
Yeah. Okay. Bad habits.
Bad habits, yes. So, and how that relates to discipline. So getting over bad habits and overcoming them is all about developing control, right?
Self-control.
Self-control, self-discipline, same thing, all right, pretty much. Discipline's acknowledging the fact that it's a problem.
I forgot about this one.
Knowing what to do about it, and developing a scheme to fix that. Not necessarily a scheme, but
a scheme.
Ways in which you can overcome that bad habit, I guess. But control is the most important thing, because bad habits, they will always linger, and you don't really truly overcome them. If you do go back to bad habits, they tend to become bad habits again. So it's about having control, and it can never really get as bad as it was if you maintain that control, but that does come with a lot of discipline. So yes, establishing control is very important. Go for it.
Well, one thing you've made me think of now is the another way to make those steps easier, which is really the best advice I can give. And that's, making steps easier in general. This one is to understand that the first step of fixing something is simply just acknowledging that it's a problem. Because this step can be very, very intimidating, since after you've taken it, well, you're just left feeling quite awfully, honestly, because now you're acknowledging that there's something wrong.
Yeah.
And before it wasn't that wrong, since it wasn't yet acknowledged, and that feels like you've taken a step backwards because things have now turned worse, you know?
Yeah.
But that's why it's such an intuitive and unintuitive step to take, but it really does work. Just acknowledging that something, it's painful, it's difficult, but acknowledging that something is a bad habit, that something is negative, something's wrong. That's really one of the smallest. That's the first step you should take to fix anything. And you should understand that as a positive step, even though you're going to be feeling worse after taking it. That is a positive. Very, very important.
Yeah. easing off of these bad habits as well can really help, and not just dropping them completely. Especially if you stop doing something completely and then you have a rough day, you might go back to a bad habit. Just developing an understanding of how you can move away from that and working out of it instead of dropping it completely. Because some days you will have days where you aren't as disciplined, and you're more susceptible to temptation, especially with those bad habits. Especially if you're ill or you're bored, bad habits can creep in again. And just almost having rules would really help.
I have rules for myself.
Exactly, yeah. Having rules.
I've banned things to do. I no longer do them.
Exactly, there we go. And sticking to those rules as well. And that really develops discipline, is sticking to those rules.
I've not stuck to them.
Oh dear.
I've not fully stuck to them, but that's another important thing. If you got a rule and you break it, that doesn't have to fully break down. You can definitely recover from that.
Certainly. It does happen. We're all human, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
At the end of the day.
I don't like saying that.
Yeah, try not to be too harsh to yourself, but I'm sure you will be, especially if you're trying to overcome something. That's completely normal. Thank you guys for listening to the Bean Boyz Podcast. I hope you enjoyed. And if you'd like to listen to our future podcasts, you can subscribe. And we'll see you next time. Thank you guys. Bye-bye.